All right. Just one more. One singular game more. Surely we'll play someone who doesn't hang a piece in 15 moves, right? Surely. All right. Let's continue. Oh, that was a pre-move from Griffin L. That was a pre-move. Okay. E4, E5. Well, let's get real here. Knight F3. Going to continue with that one. Knight C6. We have options. C3, bishop C4, bishop B5. Of course, D4. Just the Scotch is definitely a big weapon. Big weapon. Hmm. Okay, I'm gonna play C3. It's definitely not the most common opening, but you can imagine that it takes moves from other openings as well. Like it takes ideas. So okay, C3 knight F6 makes the most sense. Let's go ahead with D4, which is pretty much the whole point of the opening. I know it doesn't make a lot of sense because like E4 pawn is hanging, and after attacking it, we just play this move, kind of ignoring it. So knight takes E4 entirely possible. Pawn takes here, completely reasonable as well. Pawn takes, for example, E5. We can continue from there. But the whole point of the opening is you play C3 and then D4 straight away, and regardless of black attacking the center pawn. So if pawn takes, then we can keep pushing. E5. And if knight takes E4, I mean, this guy's hanging as well, so black has to think, okay, if I take there, maybe they'll take here. But that's probably not what we would do. Okay, takes on D4. Yes, there's taking back, but aren't really too sure the ins and outs of that opening, especially with bishop B4. So, yeah, we'll definitely continue with E5 here. Attacking the knight. Okay, knight has to go somewhere. D5 looks like the best candidate. You can definitely put the knight on E4, though. See what he wants to do. Knight G4, for example. We take here and we defend the pawn, and then we're able to boot the knight out with H3. But the opening is definitely very double-edged already, we can say that. It's not something simple. I mean, here we can just take, defend the pawn. We could also play queen e2. Couple options. Okay, place knight here. We won't think very long to play this move because we get our pawn back and defend the pawn in the center. Now, h3 next is definitely on the menu. Let's play knight here so that we don't even allow him to trade the bishop off. The reason I don't want to play bishop d2, number one, I don't feel the need to trade. I'd like for him to trade here and give me the two bishops. But I also want to maintain this bishop in the event of knight h6, which looks likely. And then bishop takes h6 will be nice to have. h3, knight, f6 can be played. I don't know if it's good, but it can be played, put it that way. So I don't think h3 is good enough just yet. Or not that it's not good enough, but it's not necessary. I feel like it might not be necessary. So let's have a think here. If we don't play h3 and we go like bishop c4, what's black going to do? e6? I don't think so. Let's do it. I don't think these moves are good. Remember, as soon as we castle, we'll be threatening a massive move, knight d5, because we'll be unpinning our knight by castling. So castling threatens this, meaning it kind of forces bishop takes knight. And one nice thing for us is that after pawn takes on e5, we can throw in h3 then, and it might work a little bit better. But yeah, castling as quick as possible is very important here. If f6, all of a sudden there's no castling for black, looks really bad. First, we're looking at h3, but I think more important than h3 is just castling. Especially since right now, h3, the knight can technically go to f6. Not 100% sure about that. Knight f6, it's in a pin. If I get out of the pin, bishop e2, then knight e4. This is in a pin. Don't want to deal with that. Focus on getting the king out of the center. Because right now I have a clear advantage, and it's the center. But the center can be undermined by black, so I have to turn my advantage into something else. Basically, I'll say, okay, you can undermine my center, but then my king will be castled and yours won't be. So trying to trade in one thing for another. Okay, we do see the king castle. I think I'm just going to follow suit. We have h3 always on tap. I definitely played this move quickly, but I think it's still the best. Knight d5 is a really big move for me, so I think this move is mandatory. Another good move for white is bishop g5, because it can't really be met by f6. This looks like trouble, because h3 is about to force knight there. Now there's no knight f6. So h3 is a big threat. Knight d5 is a big threat. Bishop g5 is a big threat. You can't play f6. You can't play d5. The only reasonable move is d6. And I think you have to play it after you take this knight. Otherwise, knight d5 will hurt. Big time. Like a very nasty kind of ending to the game will be like d6. Not understanding knight d5 is a threat. Then h3. Knight goes there. Takes. Knight f6. Right? So very good move by my opponent there. If I go bishop g5 now, there's queen to b4, so taking back is also mandatory. So yeah, our next idea is probably h3. I also really like bishop g5 just as a move. a4, bishop a3 looks good, but it's a little bit slow. If he goes d5, interesting. It's not as bad as you might think. It does lose a pawn, and I'll probably happily take it, but I will say it's not complete nonsense. Okay, so we'll take h3. I've been waiting and waiting and waiting to play this move, but remember, the effects of h3 have not gone anywhere. So it's not like my opponent now has a ton of options that he didn't have before to deal with h3. No, it's the same threat. In fact, maybe it's gotten worse. So pretty good from my opponent so far. I mean, d5 is definitely not the best move, but he does get the pieces out. It's better to give up the pawn and open up the bishop than, for example, to play like b6 and bishop here, right? Because that's just too slow. So that's why I'm saying I do kind of like what he's doing. Bishop f5, as we've been talking about, he's getting developed here. I think it's time for h3. Regardless of what I do next, h3 should be played first. Knight h6, only move, so just waiting for it to happen. Knight h6, although it can be taken, I'm still wondering if that's the best, the best idea. I can play bishop g5, but after queen d7, like, did that really do anything for me? h3, habits. We finally got this move in. It's been hard to sit there patiently and not play it. Whoa. Jeez. That is a move out of left field. Knight takes e5. I mean, knight h6 was about to be tough. Like, it would have been a very bad position for black, but I do at least understand why he played it. Like, knight h6 looked bad, right? He was just going to be down material, wide open king. This is going to be a full extra piece for me, but still surprising. Still very surprising. So if we take here, knight takes. I don't think that's great for me. I want to keep these. I'm so greedy. If I take here, I technically lose a pawn. I win a piece, but I lose a pawn for it. If I take knight takes and rook e1, I'm trying to win it without even losing the pawn. So greedy. I don't think it works. Or maybe it does. Or maybe it does. I'm really going to do it. This is such a weird decision. So I'm going to take here with the knight. And after the knight takes back, just rook e1. And I'm looking to take back with the rook. Reason that I think that this works is if black wants to defend the knight, it's got to be f6. It's not happening. If you want to attack my bishop, no matter how you attack it, rook takes e5, hits the queen and defends it. And in this way, we maintain every single pawn, which would be impressive if it works. I did look at bishop here because queen takes knight f3, and I thought bishop here, queen d2 was still good. And yeah, this is what we wanted. Takes. We get the piece back, but we don't even compromise anything. Having our cake and eating it too. So I don't know, queen f6, right? Seems to make sense. This is a basic fork here. Queen f6 does handle both threats. Gets me wondering about bishop a3, but rook e8, I think it's okay. Yeah, queen f6, queen f3 looks like the best move. Ooh. Yeah, this one definitely drops material. So g6, I think we can just go back unless we need another move. It's also queen g4. I feel like at this point we're kind of spoiled for choice. Bishop f4 as well. I mean, queen g4, king h8, bishop h6, rook g8. Hmm. I feel like I want to start with this. Just getting more pieces out. So yeah, queen d7. Now, the thing to remember is rook g5, h6, rook g6 will be playable once the queen moves. If the queen goes somewhere here, or here even, then we don't even have to move the rook. Hmm. So both things are hit. So yeah, we definitely need to move the rook. I like this move because h6 looks really likely. And I think it gets mated by force. Maybe rook g6, queen h5, and queen h6. So even though king here, even though it looks like this is the move, as I just mentioned, I think the forced mate, surprisingly, is just queen h5. It looks like this is an amazing move, but after king g7, I don't see the mate. So queen h5 is a surprising move where after you take, I take, and it's mate because the king has nowhere to go. If you take the bishop, it's mate anyway. Yeah, I think queen h5 is the surprising move that leads to mate here. But yeah, he's down 2 pieces. And Griffin is taking the L that's in his name for a reason. Ouch. No, he definitely took time to think. It should be said that when he gave up his first piece, he definitely did it consciously. He didn't blunder it, so to speak. Like, he did it knowing he would be losing a piece. So it was a conscious decision to give it up. He sort of evaluated that if he didn't give up his piece, sacrifice it, that maybe the position instead would be just worse. Like, it would be really tough to play. And he's right. I still would have kept the piece and played on, but he's not wrong that it would have been a tough position. Certainly not very appetizing. GG to Griffin. GG to Griffin indeed. What went so badly? Well, here, after takes e5, the knight normally goes somewhere central. D5 definitely, but yeah, knight g4, kind of on the wrong path already. H3 would be great, but just getting developed and getting castled, that's what you need to do quickly. Because now knight d5 is so nasty, and it's tough. Like, in this position, you know, you have to give some credit to Griffin. I know that knight h6 is the best move, but what's the next best move? It's the moves he did, right? I mean, that's obvious considering you either save your knight or sack it, but still, the difference between knight h6 and sacking on e5 is like nothing. It's like half a pawn. That's how bad knight h6 would be. I was happy with knight e5 here. Like, I think knight e5 and rook e1 is, thank you very much, well calculated. Yeah, not even losing another pawn here was made it pretty brutal. Yeah, the insane thing about this position is, like, if black plays queen d7 or queen f6, the evaluation is about 5.8. 5.9 plus 5.9. The evaluation of queen d6, losing a whole entire bishop, is plus 6.3. Losing the whole bishop changes the eval by like half a pawn. Less. That's how bad the position was. That's the initial evaluation. What the hell? You guys are crazy. But it's based on black playing queen d5. I'm like, okay. Engines have lost their mind. Anyhow, the opening was decisive. This Ponziani stuff is very tricky. The c3 Darbo. Right? And after knight f6, d4, and the idea is if they take, you can play, for example, d5. There are other moves to do, but for example, d5. And you'll have some fun here at least. You'll have some fun. Anyhow, I really will end on that one. That was a good game. I thought Griffin played well. He used his time. GG to him. But the Ponziani is a tricky opening. So I am gonna say goodbye and good night. My first stream back about 6.5 hours. Eric was streaming earlier today. It'll absolutely be a lot busier here on the channel. Last couple weeks we haven't had many streams in, but make sure you're following. It'll be really busy here on Kick. We're gonna get lots of hours in for the rest of this month and in August. So you guys can count on that. Thank you, John Galt, here at the end. John Galt, 1, 2, 8. Thank you for the 6 subs.